Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Biblical Explorations on Psalm 34:6 Ministries. Um, we're just going to get right into it because I have no idea how long this video is going to be because I discovered something after I was checking out a comment, and let's just get right into it. So, first, the question is jealousy a sin? And the answer to that is it depends. But before we get to that, let me show you what inspired this video. So this comment that was on someone's page that I know commented this. And for the privacy's sake, I blurred out the picture and name, but check out this comment. Jealousy is a sin. God is a jealous God, which makes him the sinner. Thus, Satan's con. Genesis 6, God regrets making us. Now, when I missed the bottom part of his comment. I didn't even notice it until I screenshotted it and started to edit it for the privacy. So oh my gosh, there's so much going on here. So he's calling God a sinner, which that is blasphemous. Calling God a sinner is like calling him a liar. In Genesis 6, God regrets making us. Oh my gosh, where do I start with this one? Well, let me just start with the fact that about jealousy. Okay, jealousy, it depends on whether it's a sin. It depends on why you're jealous. So the godly jealous is, when God is jealous for our love and devotion, he wants all of our love and for him and for us to serve him first and foremost. And the best way to illustrate this would be like with a husband and wife. So if a husband or a wife was jealous of their spouse because maybe they're sharing their love with someone else and not completely with their spouse, that would be a godly jealousy. That's a righteous jealousy. Now, if you're jealous because you're envious of what somebody has, like their spouse or, their car or their house, that is a sinful jealousy, and the Bible says that. So that's the big difference right there. So God is a jealous God, meaning he wants all of our love. So this is where idolatry comes into play. When you put something before the Lord, it's like you're cheating on God. You're being unfaithful. And the Old Testament goes over that all the time. I mean, that's what the judgments on Israel. It was always about that, their unfaithfulness, their idols, their idol worship, their worshiping of other gods. It was their unfaithfulness to the Lord. So now that we covered that there is such a thing as a godly jealousy, let's go to Genesis 6 because God regrets making us, but this is a very complicated passage. So let me pull up Genesis 6 and we'll read it because this is where things get a little complicated. So Genesis 6 is pre-flood. This is before the Lord flooded the earth and before saving Noah and his family. So Genesis 6, more and more people were born until finally they spread all over the earth. Some of their daughters were so beautiful that supernatural beings came down and married the ones they wanted. Pause. Okay. Some of their daughters were so beautiful that supernatural beings came down and married the ones they wanted. This is getting into now like the book of Enoch. Okay. The Watchers, if you've heard of the Watchers, these angels came down from their positions in heaven and took women to be their wives, and they had children with them. Okay, so let's move on. We're gonna jump down to Genesis 6 verses 4. The children of the supernatural beings who had married these women became famous heroes and warriors. They were called Nephilim and lived on the earth at that time and even later. The Nephilim were giants. These were the offspring of the angels who had children with these women, and these people were evil. They were doing evil things at that time, and the book of Enoch elaborates into this. Whatever your feelings are on the book of Enoch, the book of Enoch elaborates basically on Genesis 6, that evil was running rampant because the children that were begotten from these angels and women were becoming giants. They were slaying people. They were, from what I remember, they were eating people. And we can't even begin to fully comprehend and understand and fathom how evil it was. But it had to have been pretty bad for the simple fact that God wanted to wipe everything out, because nothing was going according to the way he wanted it to go. When the angels started disobeying the Lord and taking women as wives, and the evil was spreading, and these angels, which are now demons, were teaching people all kinds of evil. So there's a little backdrop there, of a little backstory of what's going on here. I mean, it's crazy, like, going back to this comment. I mean, he's got so much going on in one comment. You know, he goes from saying jealousy is a sin and that God is a sinner to Genesis 6, God regrets making us. But I mean, that had nothing to do with, yeah, you know, this is the problem with people like to skate right over Genesis 6, because let me tell you something. This is going back like a couple of years ago or so. About 3 years ago, when I first started getting back into reading the Bible on a regular basis, and I remember coming across Genesis 6, and I was like, when I first read Genesis 6 verses 1, the part where it says some of their daughters were so beautiful that supernatural beings came down and married the ones they wanted, I'm like, wait, what? And I was like in disbelief, and I was like, all right, I gotta, because all I was reading at the time was this contemporary English version, which I'm reading right now. And I was like, all right, let me look at some of these other translations. Something's not right here. So I probably opened up like the NIV, and the NIV, well, just for curiosity's sake, let me quick pick it up, look it up, because I think the NIV says sons of God. NIV, where are you? There it is. Nope. Here it is. Genesis 6. Sorry if I bumped the mic. Yeah, okay, so Genesis 6, this is the New International Version. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. So the sons of God, so they're angels. And some people want to deny the fact that they were angels, but I mean, it's right there in the text. Again, like, how can you argue that? And then if people still want to beat that drum that, you know, that they weren't angels, then what are the Nephilim? And let's do a Google search real quick on what a Nephilim is. Okay, because it says the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward. While the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them, they were the heroes of old, men of renown. Let's do a search on a Nephilim. What is a Nephilim? I like this AI overview. In the Hebrew Bible, Nephilim are mysterious beings or people of unusually large size and strength, often interpreted as giants or the fallen ones, whose origins and identity are debated by scholars. So, yes. And you know what? This is so ridiculous. I mean, I just almost was like, when I noticed the bottom part of that comment, I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, I don't know how long this video is going to be, but I don't think it's going to be too long. But at first I was like, oh my, because this is like a fully loaded comment here. We got a lot going on. But clearly this is somebody that doesn't even, they don't understand what they're talking about. You know, and this is why it's important to read the Bible. And I say that all the time. But I asked this person, I said, tell me where it says in the Bible that jealousy is a sin. And now, so let me show you where I did a Google search on, is jealousy a sin? Just curious to see what the AI overview would bring up. And it says, in many religious and philosophical contexts, jealousy, particularly when driven by envy or covetousness, is considered a sin or a negative character trait. However, some interpretations distinguish between godly jealousy, a righteous zeal for one's relationship with God or a spouse, like we talked about earlier, and sinful jealousy, envy, or covetousness. So down here, this makes the distinction between godly jealousy and sinful jealousy, which we've already discussed, but let's read what the AI overview has to say. Godly jealousy. Some interpretations distinguish between a righteous zeal for one's relationship with God or a spouse. Example, a husband's jealousy over his wife's infidelity, and sinful jealousy, envy, or covetousness. Now, this is sinful jealousy. This is the desire for what others have, often accompanied by resentment or bitterness. So, I'm sure the person is going to get back to me, maybe. I don't really care, but they're probably going to say, oh, well, the Bible says thou shalt not covet. Yes, it does. And coveting what others have is a sin. We know that. Most of us know that read the Bible or know the Ten Commandments. But that's not the same as why God is jealous. God doesn't covet what we have. In fact, we owe it to God, and we owe him praise for everything that we have, because everything good comes from the Lord. The Lord has no reason to covet anything that we have. That would just be silly. But what he is a jealous God. He is jealous as a husband or a wife is for their spouse's love if they're sharing their love and devotion with somebody else. In other words, they're being unfaithful. That's the kind of jealousy that the Lord has for us. See, our relationship with God is like that of a marriage. And anytime that we put anything above the Lord or before the Lord, it is like being unfaithful in a marriage. And so that's the severity of it. That's the severity of idolatry. You notice how a lot of times these videos and these topics go back to idolatry, because that's really, I think, one of our biggest struggles. And that's why in the past I've mentioned about wanting to cover idolatry more, because I don't think idolatry gets covered enough. I think idolatry a lot of times gets overlooked, because I think and I know I've said this before, I think a lot of times people think of idolatry as, worshiping statues and stuff, and that's part of it, but idolatry is much deeper than that. Idolatry can be anything: a hobby, a career, even a spouse. Putting anything above or before the Lord is idolatry. And the best way to discover idolatry in your own life, if there is any, is to evaluate your life, to evaluate your priorities. What are you putting before the Lord? And only you can answer that. So, with that being said, if you have any questions, please feel free to comment them down below. This video will be available on Facebook and YouTube, and I invite you to join the Facebook community group so that you can join in the discussion. It's always very interesting, and I look forward to chatting with you there. All right, I'll see you guys, and have a good one.